One of the things I've had to come to terms with here at the store is that a lot of people have completely different motivations for why they get into airsoft guns. As for a lot of people, they get into it as a low-cost alternative to going to an actual shooting range and doing a little bit of target practice. The nice thing about airsoft guns is they give you a gun that's reasonably similar to your actual firearm, but you can operate it at a fraction of the cost of what you would normally have to spend for ammunition and range time at a normal shooting range. Of course, there's always the other side of the coin where there's a lot of guys that get into airsoft shooting that have absolutely no intention of ever even owning an actual firearm. For these guys, it's just a fantasy thing where they want to go out and play soldier for a day, or maybe they're a big fan of some of the video games that are out there like Call of Duty or Black Ops, and they just want to take a break from reality and just have a little bit of fun. Now, for these guys, I'd always see them doing things to their airsoft guns that just didn't make any sense to me from the standpoint of a firearms owner. But I think when you look at it through their eyes of, the fantasy guys of what they're doing to the guns, I think it makes perfect sense when you understand what their motivations are. One great example of that is what we're going to be talking about this week, and that's putting silencers on airsoft guns. So I know a lot of you gamers are out there scratching your heads right now saying, well, I don't know why you would have a problem with putting a silencer on an airsoft gun. That seems completely normal to me. Well, from the standpoint of a firearms owner, this makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. First of all, an airsoft gun is a completely silent gun anyway, so the idea that you need to silence a silent gun with a silencer is completely superfluous. Number two, these things don't actually do anything. These aren't actual suppressors, so they're not actually going to make the gun any quieter. They're just really there for looks. Number two, they make the gun longer than it needs to be, which sort of defeats the purpose of having a handgun. The whole idea of having a handgun is to have something concealable that you can put away and get into tight quarters with it. You now have a weapon that's twice as long as it needs to be for no particular reason. Number three, you can't fit it into a holster because it's just too darn long. So in general, to a firearms owner, this makes no sense at all. Now, I know a lot of you gamers are out there going to hear all that and say, you're completely missing the point. Who cares whether the gun does anything or not? It looks cool as shit. I don't care if you can shoot something or if you can shoot faster or quieter or anything like that. That gun just looks really cool. It looks like something that James Bond is going to come jumping out of an Aston Martin with. I don't care if you can actually hit anything. It's just all about the aesthetic. And I think when you understand that motivation, you can use these things in ways that will actually help improve your airsoft shooting. A silencer or suppressor is a device attached to the barrel of a firearm which reduces the amount of noise and visible muzzle flash generated by firing the weapon. A suppressor is typically constructed of a metal cylinder with internal mechanisms to reduce the sound of firing by slowing the escaping gas and sometimes by reducing the velocity of the bullet. American inventor Hiram Percy Maxim is usually credited with inventing and selling the first commercially successful models in 1902, which were developed in parallel with the automobile muffler, which used many of the same techniques to create quieter running cars. Suppressors first saw wide use in World War II by American clandestine agents in the OSS and their British counterparts in the SOE. Today, suppressors see wide use by elite military groups, including the Navy SEALs, the Army Special Forces, and other highly trained special operators. Now, a lot of the cheaper plastic guns that are out there come with a suppressor supplied with it, which you can add to it or actually remove from a lot of them. This is the Double Eagle G36. This is also the UTG Navy SEAL pistol. You can see comes with a suppressor on it. Both of these are plastic guns, and the problem is these suppressors aren't really held on very well, so more often than not, kids will run into trees or smash into door frames and break the suppressors off of it, which generally wreck the gun. So I recommend if you're going to display the gun, you can leave the suppressor on there just for looks, but if you're actually planning on using the gun, go ahead and remove the suppressor beforehand. That way you won't accidentally smash the thing off of it and wreck your airsoft gun in the process. Now, one of the first things you have to determine with your gun is whether or not the gun is configured in such a way that it will accept a suppressor or a silencer on the end of the barrel. Most higher end full metal airsoft guns come with threaded barrels on them. The thing you have to realize is that all of the manufacturers are required by federal law to put these orange tips on the ends of it so that nobody mistakes you for having an actual gun. What all the manufacturers generally do is they'll glue them on and pin them to the barrel so they're not easily removable for it. So if you're going to try to take one of these things off, you have to accept a few things. Number one is that you're going to make your gun look a lot more realistic, so you have to accept the fact that you may scare the crap out of somebody, so you might want to go out and paint your suppressor orange or take other steps so that people know that this is not a real gun. Number two, if you're going to try to save this orange tip and reuse it, it's probably not going to happen. In order to get most of these off, you either have to heat them up or melt them or cut them off or break them in some way in order to get it off of the barrel. So if you're going to want to put one of these back on there, you're going to have to buy a replacement tip to put it on the gun. Now, if you don't know anything about this and you're a little bit scared of taking the tip off, bring the gun to us. We do these things all the time, and we'll be glad to do it right for you the first time so you're not stuck with a mangled airsoft gun. Now, not all airsoft guns have threads on the ends of the barrels. Here we have two AK-47s. This one does not have threads on the ends of the barrel, and we've already removed the flash hider from this one. This one we removed the flash hider, and you can see it is a threaded barrel. So some barrels do not have threads on them, and in this case, if you pull the flash hider off, you may have to find some other way in order to attach a suppressor onto the end of this gun. Now, the next thing you're going to want to determine is how are the threads on the end of your barrel configured in order to put a silencer on it. Now, most silencers that you buy on the market these days have 14mm threads on it, so you want to make sure at least that the threads on the end of your barrel are the 14mm type in order to accept a silencer. The part that gets kind of confusing for a lot of people is that sometimes these are negative threads and sometimes these are positive threads depending on which gun you buy from which manufacturer. Negative threads actually turn in the opposite direction that you would normally turn a nut or bolt in order to tighten it. This is a negative thread, so I'm turning it actually in the opposite direction in order to tighten the silencer. A positive thread would turn in the opposite direction. So it's important to know which direction those threads are going so that you get the right suppressor for your barrel. So what happens if you get negative threads on your barrel and positive threads on your suppressor? Well, don't panic. There are adapters that are available out there that will adapt your barrel from positive to negative or negative to positive. So if you do have a mismatch, you may want to think about going out and getting one of these adapters in order to adapt your barrel to your suppressor. One thing you may want to consider when you're buying a silencer is to look for one of the ones that has positive threads on one side and negative threads on the other side. So this will accept either threaded barrel depending on which side you thread it into. Just make sure when you're actually threading the barrel into it that you take your time and do it slowly and don't force it. If it's not working, flip it around and do it the other way, and just make sure it goes in easily. If you're forcing it, you're probably going to cross thread it and wreck your barrel and your suppressor, so do it right the first time. The part that I've had to struggle with over and over again is that when you're putting a suppressor on an airsoft gun, it has absolutely nothing to do with the functionality of the gun. This is purely an aesthetic thing, and you're just going for a particular look for your gun. So in this case, we've got an M249 saw with a 6-inch SOCOM suppressor on the end of it, and for some people, this is exactly the look that they're going for. To me, this is a little bit goofy because why would you want to get a cut-down version of a machine gun and then make the barrel longer? It sort of defeats the purpose of having the paratrooper version of the M249 saw. If you wanted a longer barrel, just go get the full-size barrel one and save yourself all the trouble. But for some of the people that are out there, this is exactly the look that they're going for, and it makes perfect sense to them. Now, there are different size suppressors that are available for different size guns, both in the diameter as well as the length of it. So if you're going for a particular look on your gun, you may want to bring your gun in. That way we can match it up to the right size suppressor and give you exactly the kind of aesthetic that you're looking for. In this case, we've got an AK-47 with a folding stock with a 4.5-inch suppressor on the end of it to give a particular kind of look. Now, if you want to gain some functionality by actually having a suppressor on the end of your gun, you may want to consider extending your inner barrel all the way to the end of the suppressor on your particular airsoft gun. In other words, most of the standard inner barrels only extend to the end of the outer barrel, leaving the suppressor basically empty, so there's nothing to enhance what the BB's doing as it's traveling down the barrel. Versus if you decide to extend your barrel all the way to the end of the outer barrel as well as the suppressor, you're gaining extra velocity as well as accuracy, and you can turn the standard M4 basically into a sniper rifle. Now the same concept can be used on pistols as well as rifles, provided that they have the threaded barrel on the end of it, and also you can extend the barrel out to the end of a pistol as well. The downside is that once you extend that barrel all the way out, you're pretty much going to have to leave the suppressor on the gun all the time, which is going to make it more accurate, but it's going to be a real pain in the neck to find a holster that you can fit this thing into. So like Wyatt Earp might be really happy with this gun, but most guys are going to find this to be kind of impractical to be running around a battlefield with. But it looks really cool. So those are some of your options when you're considering putting a silencer on the end of your airsoft gun, whether you're looking for a particular aesthetic or if you're actually looking to increase your range and accuracy. We pretty much got all of your bases covered here. So feel free to stop by the showroom if you got any other questions, but remember to bring your gun in. That way we can actually match your gun up to the correct silencer and get you the right one on the first try. So until then, we'll see you the next time.